NASA is for the public, and the real space program is run by the Air Force and the Navy. Alexander Light, Humans Are Free, reports that NASA is basically a front. The real action is run by Air Force and Navy, according to a recent policy mix story. And this is also what William Tomkins is telling us about. Tomkins' interviews and speeches are on YouTube. You can find him, William Tomkins. He was an engineer for the aircraft carriers. He was also an engineer for spacecraft, for the secret space program, as he tells us. And the policy mix story says China is in the final stages of preparing for its Chang 3 moon lander, and it has gone there. And the ambitious probe was to orbit the moon before propelling down to the surface, unleashing a solar-powered moon rover to explore the moon's surface. And this has worried NASA, as news and the awakened communities are wondering why. I can think of several reasons, and I will share them with you right now, he says. Number one, extraterrestrials are protecting the moon, and the real reason why NASA abandoned the colonization of the moon. Quote, despite all the promises in science fiction movies, humans would not build bases on the moon, mine for minerals, or use it as a stepping stone to other planets. In fact, the moon would soon be forgotten and ignored by space research. Why is that? In an article entitled, Why NASA Never Went Back to the Moon, The Truth, I presented solid evidence that NASA encountered crafts of alien origin while exploring the moon. And my comment here is also, this is exactly what William Tomkins told us of. And the fact that there were craft and alien beings on the ridge of a crater, the rim of a crater, and that the astronauts were reporting back to Houston that they're there and they're huge and they're looking at us, and they were being intimidated by these humanoid-looking things standing by their craft, and they were supposedly very tall beings. This is what William Tomkins talks about, and you can find his, I'll try and find the link and put it in the description box for you. Now, going back to this, I will briefly present you with some of the most interesting cockpit conversations from Apollo 11 moon mission. These transcripts have been kept hidden from the public for 11 years before being declassified, so they are now made public, they're declassified. Yet only few people are aware of what amazing information they contain. Quote, Apollo 11. Mission Control, what's there? Malfunction garble. Mission Control calling Apollo 11. Apollo 11? These babies were huge, sir. Enormous. Oh, God, you wouldn't believe it. I'm telling you, there are other spacecraft out there, lined up on the far side of the crater edge. They're on the moon watching us. Apollo 14, Day 4. CMP. Hi, sun. That's one right down there. Just shows how it dominates the whole photograph. Just an extremely bright crater. Sun angle just is not high enough for you to see it there. Here. Yes, they're mining it, I think. End quote. So, okay, please remember the mining part. 2. The real space programs are led by U.S. Air Force and Navy, while NASA is merely a smokescreen. In my opinion, the real reason why NASA was gradually shut down for the past decades is that the government has a far superior covert space program, and NASA was only used as a smokescreen. The evidence. Excerpt from The Real Reason Why NASA is Being Shut Down. According to an alleged anti-gravity insider, the real space program is operated by U.S. Air Force and Navy, not NASA, and in his own words he says, NASA is just a front for the public, their budget is minuscule, not enough money to really do anything but put up a few probes in our solar system. The real space program falls in the military's domain, mainly Air Force and Navy, but the nice chemical rockets sure are fun to watch. Very few people from NASA are actually in the loop. They don't know anything, end quote. So after reading his testimony back in 2011, I've noticed for the first time that the Elenin observations were indeed led by the U.S. Navy, and all calculations and models were hosted on their official website, Navy Mill, and all links are now missing. Clearly, the US government is worried that China might leak secret information regarding their black programs, and anti-gravitational technology will have to be disclosed to the public, which some of them at least are not willing to do. Dr. Ben R. Rich, former Lockheed Skunk Works director, once stated, quote, "There are two types of UFOs, the ones we build and the ones they build. There being a clear reference to they being a clear reference to extraterrestrials," end quote. Which leads us to the next point. 3. Extraterrestrial spacecrafts in space. US and Russia are longtime partners when it comes to space exploration and hiding secrets from the public. But what will it happen when China begins their space programs? Will their secrets be safe, or will China finally disclose that we are not alone? This is probably of huge concern to the powers that be, who wish to keep us as uninformed as possible. There is plenty of videographic evidence showing intelligently maneuvered UFOs in space, one of the most famous being the so-called Tether incident. The testimonies from some of the most famous US and Russia astronauts who testified to have witnessed alien crafts in space, and you can watch the video testimonies of US astronauts Edgar Mitchell, Buzz Aldrin, and Leroy Gordon Cooper Jr. here in the link. In 1979, Maurice Chatelain, former chief of NASA Communication Systems, confirmed that Neil Armstrong had indeed reported seeing two UFOs on the rim of the crater. Quote, "The encounter was common knowledge in NASA," he revealed, "but nobody has talked about it until now," end quote. Russian astronauts and generals also admitted to have seen UFOs in space. 4. Nazi bases on the moon. There is no secret that the US space program is a continuation of the German space program, the dream to conquer space and build permanent bases on the moon. The US government used these German scientists to achieve the dream. Operation Paperclip was the Office of Strategic Services, OSS, program used to recruit the scientists from Germany for employment by the United States in the aftermath of World War II. Once bleached of their Germanism, their Nazism, the US government granted the scientists security clearance to work in the United States. SS Major Werner von Braun was a rocket scientist who was adopted by the US to put in charge of NASA. In 1975, he received the National Medal of Science from the US president. What is the secret is the fact that the Nazis have also developed various models of anti-gravitational flying saucers. These Foo Fighters, as the Allied pilots called them, were able to fly at incredible speeds and maneuver at precisely thought impossible angles. The Foo Fighters were a constant presence around their planes, but never shot at them. In turn, they were also impossible to be shot down, as the famous case of the Battle of Los Angeles proved. It all happened February 25th, 1942, in LA, California. A UFO appeared in the radars and in the sky, and it said that the incident was witnessed by 1 million people. At least 1,430 artillery rounds had been fired at this UFO in 1 hour, but the object was unharmed. Both video footage and pictures published in the newspapers the next day show a clear, bright, saucer-shaped craft, which is now commonly referred to as a flying saucer or UFO. Quote, radars picked up an unidentified target 120 miles west of Los Angeles. Anti-aircraft batteries were alerted at 0215 and were put on green alert, ready to fire a few minutes later. The AAF kept its pursuit planes on the ground, preferring to await indicators of the scale and direction of any attack before committing its limited fighter force. Radars tracked the approaching target to within a few miles off the coast, and at 0221, that's about 7 minutes later, the regional controller ordered a blackout. Therefore, the information center was flooded with reports of enemy planes thereafter, even though the mysterious object tracked in from sea seems to have vanished. End quote. So these were the famous secret weapons that Germany was constantly talking about and best hopes to win the war. And luckily for us, they were never able to turn them into actual weapons, because the very thing that made them so special in the first place, the anti-gravitational field surrounding the craft. It was a double-edged sword. Nobody could penetrate it from the outside, but neither could they from the inside out. ETs and the real technology. Many separate teams of scientists worked with unlimited budgets to achieve Hitler's dream of the invincible fleet of flying saucers, but the only fruitful projects were the Vril and the Hannibal. Everything started with a secret society named Thule. All prominent Nazis were part of it. Then the members were mystic worshippers of the Black Sun. You'll see that in one of my previous videos today. According to their psychic channelers, they had made contact with an extraterrestrial species residing in the Aldebaran solar system. These ETs, who call themselves Real offered to the Thule members a knowledge to build unarmed anti-gravitational flying crafts, which subsequently had been named Vril. The following is a collection of various models of Vril flying saucers. All pictures from my collection are almost certainly authentic, though some of them seem to have been aesthetically improved. It was a common practice for professional photographers to correct or improve the pictures because the cameras performed rather poorly back then. It is also possible that some of them have been improved contrast gamma color when ported to digital format. And the following is a collection of Hannibal and 1 and 2 flying saucers, as you can see. Various pictures of the Nazi Hannibal 1 and 2 flying saucers. The color one may be a prototype of the first model. And you can even see the size of the person standing on it. Now, a worldwide UFO phenomenon. The end of World War II marked the beginning of worldwide UFO phenomenon, and for obvious reasons, the Allied forces got their hands on some pretty neat technology, started playing with it, testing these revolutionary craft. This was a military project from day one, hence fell under the control of U.S. Air Force and Navy. If you remember the early accounts of UFOs, the witnesses described yellow and orange glowing crafts that interfered with electronic devices. Those were the earliest models, and they were based entirely on the Nazi research, and with time technology got better. That's why UFO sightings dropped in the past 2 decades. That's also the reason why UFOs don't interfere with electronics anymore. But back to the original UFOs, according to various sources, Nazi had also built secret bases in New Swabia in Antarctica, where they've allegedly fled in 1945 on board their latest models of flying saucers. The only available Hannibal 3 model was several stories high, and it was crewed by 32 people. It could operate without recharging for up to 8 weeks and could reach speeds of 40,000 kilometers per hour. And this model was allegedly used during the final evacuation of the top secret Nazi bases in Europe, and the destination base was in Antarctica. Alleged insiders with access to U.S. classified documents leaked one information stating that the first flight to the moon was achieved in this way in 1942 by them, and they wanted to have permanent bases on Earth's satellite, the moon, in that way. So the jackpot questions are: 1, have the last remains of them managed to achieve the dream of establishing their permanent bases on the moon? And number 2, if so, were they, the miners, encountered by NASA's astronauts on the surface of the moon? What do you think? Anyway, this is by Alexander Light on Humans Are Free and his Creative Commons. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.